Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman. The primary election season is on in full swing across the political parties, as each races against the June 3rd deadline for submission of candidates to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The major opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, held its states' houses of assembly, the House of Representatives, and the Senate primaries during the weekend and Monday, respectively. And yesterday, the PDP held its governorship elections across almost almost all the 13 states in which the party is in control. The governors or their candidates won the governorship tickets of the party. Two of its three governors on their first tenure, that is, Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State and Ahmadu Fintiri of Adamawa State, won tickets to run for a second term, while Bauchi State Governor Bala Muhammad is stepping up to run for the presidency. Notable politicians who pulled out of the race before the primaries include former Deputy Senate President Senator Ike Ekweremadu, that's in Enugu, Senate Minority Whip Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, Abia State, Olorogun Kenneth Gbagi of Delta State, and Deputy Governor Ude Oko Chukwu of Abia State, among others. So tonight we ask, where does this round of the primaries take the PDP in the march towards 2023? What does the primaries say about the PDP's readiness to take power from the APC? And can we glimpse the presidential primaries of the party from the just concluded primaries so far? With me in the studio to discuss these issues is Dr. Jennings Oke-Ekeanyanwu, who is a policy analyst with the Center for Contemporary Issues and Policy Studies in Abuja here. Also with me is Abdul Latif Salahu, who is our senior National Assembly correspondent in the Daily Trust Media Group here. You're much welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Suleiman.
We'll take a minute, and then when we return, we'll go straight into it and bring you what it means, what the just concluded primaries means for the PDP and for the 2023 elections. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the just concluded PDP primaries. So, Doctor, you're not a politician. You're not in politics yourself, but you follow politics actively, and you follow political and contemporary issues actively. So, there appears a pattern so far in this 2023 election cycle. From the election of the party's National Working Committee, PDP took the first step towards that, and then they took the first step, again with even the sales of nomination forms and things like that. And now they've also taken the first step towards conducting the party primaries, even though, of course, the election will happen on the same date. Does this say something about the opposition or even the ruling party, the PDP as an opposition party?
Well, PDP, probably called the People's Democratic Party and the APC, the All Progressive Congress. They are in the same, what I call the same ecosystem. We are in together. So it's we're not doing politics in the space or in the moon. So we all live in Nigeria. So what goes around, always, turns around. What is happening in APC is also happening in PDP. So when they had their convention, PDP did their convention where they, elected the officials, and the same happened to APC. They came up with the new leadership, and so the trend has always been who is outsmarting who is doing what, and who tends to do what. So, like I said, in several interviews I've granted across Abuja, in last week, they say that politicians should not waste their time and energy and money, trying to run for office, because the gladiators or the power brokers already know who's going to come out and who's going to win, and based on some political research I've done over time, it's what is happening in Nigeria right now is actually what happened in 2020 in the U.S. election. When the Democrats, came up with say, listen, we need a change of government, and so when it happened, the debate in the Democratic convention, where they have different candidates who came up with, debating on key critical issues about American politics. Nobody believed that Biden, because Biden was just going toward the second, on the last minute,
My point,
Sunday, yes,
is that there's been a pattern that has been set in this election, the various processes and procedures that have, been working out towards the election. And across all of this, first, the national conventions to state and national conventions to elect new party leaders, for the purpose of driving the election agenda.
To the primaries.
Then the sales of nomination forms, and so on, the primaries themselves, and several other procedures and processes. Across all of these, the PDP has tended to be the first before the APC, which you expect as a ruling party will probably be in the lead for this procedure. So the question is whether or not that means something or that says something for either parties.
Well, for me, what's happening in the APC is not a surprise, because it's as a result of the outcome of the political activities that have been going on in PDP over time. So they are following each other. Like I said, I was giving you a classical example of what took place in 2020 in the U.S. election, that brought to fall, Joe Biden, who has been in public office for over 45, 48, 49 years. And the same trend that is happening in PDP is also happening in APC. Whether they want to call it an agreed candidate or when they want to go for the direct primaries, which is what's going to happen. They already know who will be the candidate. Because if you look at the statistics and the way the pendulum is swinging, what will happen in PDP is the same thing that will happen in APC. So
but let me bring Latif into the discussion.
Yes.
But you mentioned something that I consider quite significant, and I will be taking you back on that.
That's right.
That they already know who will be the candidate.
The candidate, yes.
We will have to, I'm sure, we'll come back to that. So do you think it means something, either for the PDP or for the APC, that one party tends to be doing these processes first before the other?
Yes, of course, it means a lot for either of the party. Like you rightly said, the PDP has been ahead in terms of their preparation for the general election, conducting their convention first before APC, and even their primaries, even though there are a lot of issues, with the primaries before the APC. For the politicians, having their primaries ahead of the, ruling party, just for them to get their, house together and see probably where they have issues with who wins and who lose before they now start, reaching out to, the aggrieved aspirants to say, okay, fine, you lose, for this particular position, but, you can still, work, for whoever emerges as a party candidate, before the general elections. And, of course, for APC, they have been looking at, the direction PDP is going. If you observe, they have postponed, their primaries almost several times. You see the organizing secretary, trying to issue a statement that, okay, the party, the primaries, senatorial primaries and other primary, they're supposed to be, conducted, earlier, has been shifted. We have different dates, not until today that they started having their governorship primaries. They are trying to look at themselves, the directions they are taking, and perhaps possibly look at, aspirants who will be aggrieved, in PDP and see what they can do.
Okay.
To at least woo them to their side. Even though they may not be getting, any elective, position, at least they can get their support and the support of their supporters as well.
Interesting. So, but Dr. Jennings,
Yes.
You were saying that the parties know already who is going to be candidate. I wonder what do you mean?
Well, what actually meant was, it's like you know the capacity of the strength of someone. You already know the strength and capacity of someone. So even if you stretch that person, they'll be able to carry it. So the political, as someone who is a political strategist and a communication strategist, I understand the political setting of Nigerian, formation. I understand how the Nigerian politics work. You need to understand the power brokers. Who are the power brokers? People who decide who becomes what. You must understand who they are. You must understand their language, their body language, and understand how to play alongside with them, because power is never given. Power is you have to earn it. You have to struggle for it. Nobody who gives you power, no matter how you try to agitate or try to try to make make the noise about it. Because power is a struggle. It's a competitive struggle. You need to really get to it. It's not something you sit down and someone will give you power. You need to work for it. So those understanding the political setting, those interest groups, the religious, the institutions, the traditional, the military, and the business, those institutions. These people have interest, just like in the U.S. The lobbyists are the biggest enterprise in American politics, because every lobbying group wants his interest to be protected. So you have to understand the Nigerian political setting. So if you're going to be anything in Nigeria, especially for the highest office in the land, you need to understand the aggregatization of the Nigerian political setting. Who are those power brokers? What their interests in this politics, because the politics is never done anywhere.
Let's come down to these specific primary elections that the PDP concluded just yesterday. Even starting from the state houses of assemblies, the House of Reps, then the senatorial primaries, and then the governorships, which so far is the prize, the most important, and then the final one is a few days down the line, which is the presidential one.
That's right. But I was trying to make a point that, what I mean by already know who's going to be what, the capacity. You don't present a candidate that can't win election. And election.
But the candidates present themselves. They buy the forms for themselves, right?
Because
and their supporters
even if a candidate buys the form.
They're not giving the forms free of charge.
Yeah, that's right. But you need to also understand when the repoliticking, because the repoliticking starts from the primary now. Whoever gets the ticket.
Okay, I think you're probably talking about how this leads to the presidential election, or maybe things like Peter Obi dropping out. We'll talk about this towards the end of the program, when we are reflecting on how the just concluded primaries might impact on the presidential election. But for now, let's have a review of these primaries themselves. Do you think there have been some surprises in the primaries across these three different offices, either gubernatorial or senatorial, and the states and federal House of Representatives primaries?
Okay, no surprise.
Okay.
Yeah, reason. Before now, if you have been following the trend, you observe that there have been crises even from the process of electing the delegates that would select the aspirant. A lot of aspirants have been complaining that the incumbents are trying to manipulate the delegate list to favor their own preferred aspirant, and a lot of them have been coming out to express their displeasure over the process. The governors themselves they have their own preferred candidate, but some of them in some states have been so vocal, so articulate about their preferred candidate. Some keep it to themselves and trying to use their machinery to at least get what they want as far as their own preferred aspirants is concerned. If you observe, like in Enugu, in Abia, in Taraba State, where we have crisis, especially this state where the incumbents are serving their second term, their final term. So, and they are not coming out again. Probably some of them have another ambition, probably senatorial ambition. So they have their own preferred candidate, and because of the fact that the parties in the state, the state leadership, have promised a level playing field, for all the aspirants. They believe that, okay, we can come, with whatever we need to offer, with whatever materials we have, to gather support of to get the support of the delegate. But because, the governor, they have their own, calculation as well. So they believe that, for them to get what they want, they have to start from the beginning, which is a process of electing the delegate. So they have their own loyalist, as the delegate. First and foremost. Then after that, of course, the delegate will do the bidding, of, whoever is paying them as well. So for me, it's not a surprise because, we have been seeing the handwriting on the wall, for over, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where, aspirants have been complaining that, the incumbents are manipulating the delegate list.
Interesting. So the incumbents manipulating delegates list, that's one thing, and we can dig further into that. But one of the issues that have also emerged in these primaries is how financialized, or should I say monetized or monetarized, or whichever one that it has become. You see situations where aspirants are even going after, allegedly going after delegates to recover monies that they had given, for which there's been. What are the reasons behind this? Is it that, or could we say that PDP had not learned lessons at all?
The formation of political parties in Nigeria, is not rooted in most of the political parties, and not rooted in ideological leanings. So you already know this is this party, this is that party. But in Nigeria, it's just a group of people can come together to form political party to achieve a set out goal. Once that set out goal is achieved, it's all becomes history. So in the case of PDP, they've lost power since 2015, and they're trying to regroup and come back to power. And coming back to power is not an easy thing, because for you to take down, the APC, you need to you need to double up your efforts, and the APC, they're not in a hurry to give up power. So they're also strategic. They understand the power play of Nigerian politics. So they're not going to sit down and watch you guys. They're not going to sit down and watch you guys come and take this power from them. So it's going to be a fight. So the 23 election is going to be a fight that PDP will try to fight. Probably they will get it. Probably they will not get it.
Yeah.
It all depends on how they fight. And the APC, in spite of their crisis, their internal crisis, will try to get over, because the election is maybe about 10 months or 9 months. So they are going to get over some of the issues going on in in their party. You know, so the way it is right now is that PDP as a political party is struggling to wrestle power. You know, and you know, when you struggle to wrestle power, you do everything humanly possible to wrestle power. But the people you're wrestling power for, you know, they're not going to sit down and watch you, because they are master too. They understand the system. They understand the intrigues and all the undertonings of the political issues in Nigeria. So what I find out again is that like Raleigh said, you know, some names were shortchanged, you know, some names were not. You know, like today I read in the news that the gentleman that won the Federal House of Representatives of the PDP, his name was forwarded to the national headquarters, and by the time he got to the national headquarters, his name was nowhere to be found. So it's you know, so you know, PDP they're known for you know, master game politics. Okay. You know, they know how to maneuver. You know, but it's not going to be easy, because
such maneuverings.
Yes.
Does it help a party that doesn't have power, the party in opposition, the party that wants to get back power? Does it help such a party?
Well, it's like I said, it's going to be it's going to be a tough fight. You know, because the Nigerian people, they understand who's what. You understand what I'm saying? They will understand whether the PDP have learned their lesson or they have not learned their lesson. They will also find that the APC, maybe we can forgive them in some areas. They have made mistakes, you know, but mistakes can be made. But the most important thing is, you know, realizing where you have made a mistake and moving forward. So I think the way it is, you know, the way it is, like I said, you know, the candidates, the people that will become the next president of this country, like I said, already know where the next president will come. Because I, for one, don't believe in zoning, because zoning is not a political, it's not a constitutional thing. Zoning is just a convenience of political parties to achieve certain goal. Because zoning, if you said zoning, that means there has to be some agreement. But for me, I think you must understand the politics of zoning, because zoning has also become a weapon where certain groups or certain individuals use zoning to hold down the country. You know, democracy is about competition. You know, if you have all it takes, come and fight for it. You know, like I said, nobody will give you power.
Quite interesting.
You have to earn it. You know.
Quite interesting. So, Mr. Abdul Latif, now this issue of money, you know, in this election, you know, you see a lot of people. For example, Senator Shehu Sani, he wrote earlier on his Twitter feed that he got just 2 votes because he didn't give any. I'm sure you read it. You know, he didn't give any of the delegates. He didn't pay them any money.
Maybe he doesn't have it.
You know,
maybe he doesn't have it.
The other implying that the other candidates, or at least the candidate, I mean the aspirant or the aspirant that won, actually bought it from the. So to what extent has money been influential, been pivotal and key to these primaries in the PDP?
You know, very influential, very, very influential. You know, today I attended a function, a book launch, where, you know, former President Goodluck Jonathan, you know, presented, you know, an address. And, you know, for him, he said that the ongoing primaries, you know, across the states and across the political parties, you know, for him, it's a mess.
Interesting.
You know, it's a mess in the sense that, you know, we now have a situation where, you know, money now determines who emerges as parties candidates, you know, for various, you know, positions. So, you know, we have the case, you know, gradually, you know, from Kaduna, you know, where the son of the former, you know, vice president, you know, is a question, you know, for the lobby money, you know, he paid to delegates to vote for him and saying that, you know, since I did not get your votes, you have to return my money as well. So it has played, you know, a very crucial in this, you know, primaries. So now people are now calling for the fact that, you know, since, you know, money is highly influential in this process we have at the moment. So what we are having in the general election will be worse than, you know, the primaries. So the aspirant or the candidates emerging, across, the states are not, probably maybe credible candidates that people really want.
Is it not the case that all the aspirants also give out money? Only that those ones that gave out the most were favored. So the ones that gave out the least probably don't have mouth to complain. Is that the case?
Okay, I will take an example from what happened in Kaduna, because I read the story in detail. The three aspirants, one gave out, according to reports we have, that the one aspirant gave out 3.5 million to each of the delegates. The second one gave out 2 million, to each of the delegates, while the last one gave out, 1.5 million to each of the delegates. So why the one that gave out the 3.5 million, which is the incubate, won, the primary? So meaning that the election is actually for the highest bidders. So you give out money, so you get people's votes. So we've seen it in Kaduna. We've seen it in other, states, across the country, and probably maybe we'll also see it in the coming presidential primaries of the two political parties.
Interesting. But could we say, for example, that why would delegates, who represent their political parties, who themselves had actually been elected, why would they want to sell their votes? Why would they? Like you said, to the highest bidder. Why does that happen? Particularly for a party that's in the position. I keep going back to that because taking back power requires rebuilding confidence in Nigerians. So a party that does this is probably not doing things that will help to rebuild the confidence of Nigerians that these people are ready to be trusted again with federal power.
I think from ab initio, this time, and this 2022, 23, leading to the general election, 2023, has, in the history of Nigeria, this the highest time that money has become the focus of politics. During the Shagari era, and during the Kwame era, Wolowo era, Nnamdi Azikiwe era, up to 73, 79 to 83, money was not an issue. What was an issue, what the focus was, political party and the personalities and the manifesto. These were the political issues then. But this thing started in 2014, 2015, and gradually came on 2019. But now is the worst. We know why, because the devaluation of the naira, the purchasing power of an average Nigerian citizen has fallen short, because the naira has been so devalued. The currency that is in use is the dollar, the American currency. So even if you're talking about 2.5 million naira, that's about $5,000. So it's for me, it's that money in 10 years or 15 years ago was a big money. Most of the delegates, as I know politics then, some of them earned like 300, 400,000, and at that time it was a big money. So when you look at the state of the economy, so the state of the economy has also added that that craving for the politicians to do all it takes to get this ticket. So the economy is also responsible for it. I wish that I would want to see the candidates that will come up from these political parties, what will be their debate focus. Because if you now look at political parties, they're purchasing form for like 100 million naira. And when you translate that money, it's about 100 something, 120 or $130,000. Then for PDP, it's about $75,000. So even in America, it's huge. People don't pay money to purchase farm, because election is done on state level. It's not like a one federal system where election body is conducted by one central body. So every state has its own way of getting the ticket and getting the primaries. But what I find out is that because of the flow of money, the flow, Naira is no more being talked about. What is mind you that these monies are not paid in Naira, they're paid in dollars. So, one single individual, you can see a politician will have bags of money, and that bags of money is full of dollars. So at the primary, so it's going to be easy for him to nobody will just come and give you 2 million Naira or 5 million Naira, because it's easily paid by when you give the dollars. So I think our conscience, because APC is also guilty. The PDP is also guilty. So these are two main political parties that have so much to spend. So this is what I call political competition. PDP is competing with APC, APC competing with PDP, trying to wrestle power.
We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with these issues, particularly about how the devaluation of the Naira could have affected these processes. Thank you for staying with us. So far, we've been discussing the recently concluded PDP primaries at state legislative level, but also governorship and National Assembly levels. Stay with us when we return shortly. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the just concluded PDP primaries at all levels by the presidential level. So, Malam Latif, as we were discussing, just before we came back on the break, are there any ways in which the rule changes? We now have a new electoral act, especially the fact that this new electoral act has drastically reduced the number of delegates per state, per local government, and so on. For example, the original number of delegates that the PDP were expecting was around 3,700 for presidential election now, and now that has been cut down to just about 800. So the expectation is that this will be the same across the states and across all other levels of the elections. So has this played any role in the process so far?
Yes, of course, it has played a very significant role. I think yesterday or 2 days ago, the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, told state house reporters that the fact that we now have fewer number of delegates has actually is good for the aspirants, because you have very few numbers to deal with, to relate with, and probably to talk to and even induce. Today, earlier I was saying that I attended a function where President Jonathan, delivered an address. He said, in his own, state constituency, which is comprised of 2 local governments, they have just 6 delegates to determine the fate of 4 aspirants aspiring to occupy the state assembly seat for the constituency. So now imagine 4 aspirants having to deal with just 6 delegates, 3
so the number
delegates
of aspirants is almost as equal to the number of delegates.
So meaning that each of the aspirants have a lesser work to do, because just 6 numbers, if it is 100,000 you can afford, it will be easier for you to spread it across the 6 delegates. So also in other states we have because the rules are, the Electoral Act has rule out the fact that whether statutory delegates be participating or not. We don't have that now. So we now have elected ad hoc delegates, so which are very few in numbers. So, politicians now are very happy that they have very few number of people to deal with, and they can, if they have it in mind that, okay, 3,000 or 5,000 delegates, possibly if I can afford like $2,000 for each or $3,000 for each. Now the numbers have reduced drastically. For PDP is almost about 800 delegates now, so they can multiply the money, so to swing the delegates, to their side. The rule, the change of the rule, in the Electoral Act has actually, contributed, to a very large extent to what we are seeing now as far as, inducing delegates is concerned.
Interesting, thank you. But Dr. Jennings, one of the key things that Malam Latif pointed out is that you now have, for some local governments,
yes,
or for some states, you now have just as many number of aspirants as you have delegates for a particular local government. So, for example, for Kaduna, you have maybe 3 delegates to deal with per local government. Or is it per local government, or just across the entire state, 6 delegates?
No, per local government.
Per local government. So you have 3 local governments, and then you have 6 or 4 aspirants. So when you multiply this across the states, then it is. Couldn't this have been avoided, since the Electoral Act has been passed for months? Could that not have been avoided? Isn't there a way the political parties could have found to avoid this situation?
I said something when I started. I said that you win election, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the popularity, or you can't win election because you don't present a candidate that can win election. So these political parties, they are doing permutations. They are looking from their crystal ball, political crystal ball, and said, if we want to retain this power, or if we want to regain this power, we need to present this candidate. If we don't present this particular candidate, we will lose power. But if we present this candidate, we will retain power. You see what I'm saying? So yes, these are things going on within the political party. So it's not about the zoning issue now, because these 2 political parties, they are not going to, zoning is going to be secondary, because it's the survival of the fittest. That's what is going to happen in 2023. It's going to be a serious fight. It's going to be one of the most serious fights Nigerian political setting will ever have. So they're going to look at from different permutations and look and say, we have been now reduced to this number of delegates, this number of, we have number of aspirants. They're going to talk to themselves. There's no need for me to waste my time and waste my energy, waste my money. Let me step down and support you for the better good of our political party, for the better good of our Nigerian people, for the better good of our existence. Now, because politics is give and take, they're going to look at it, okay, fine, that if, like APC, I don't know how many candidates they have, there are many aspirants they have. Because at the end of the day...
They have 28 presidential aspirants.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's only 1 or 2 aspirants from that...
25.
Yeah, that thing that can pull the votes. You see what I'm saying? The remaining other aspirants are just there just to let me make an impact. Because right now this is not going to be a make an impact. You saw what happened in Kaduna State.
Yes.
Shehu Musa started on time and said he come. Yes, Shehu Sani. And how many votes did he get?
Just 2 votes.
2 votes. So what happened like I said, what happened in Kaduna is a litmus test. It's going to cut across all the political parties and say that there's no need for me to waste my energy and time. I've tried. I've make an impact. Let me step down for Mr. A.
Thank you. Let me bring Abdul Latif into the discussion. Another dimension beyond the monetization of the primaries, is also old issues that have always dogged elections in Nigeria, particularly internal party elections, where you have 2 or 3 factions, each with its own candidate emerged. For example, in Kano State, you now have, reportedly, you now have 2 governorship candidates. You have
under which party?
Under the PDP that we're talking about. You have Muhammad Abacha representing a candidate in one faction, and then you have the other,
the son of the
Senator
former,
Wallace, Senator chieftain of the party, as another candidate representing another faction. So how do you, why are we seeing this kind of things yet again?
Even in Rivers State, it's still playing out right now.
Yes.
Fractions, will definitely, come up in, party politics, because, politics has to do with, interests. People are there to protect their interests, not in even the interest of the generality of Nigerians. And if you are in a political party and you realize that your interest is threatened, if you have, the wherewithal, the enough resources, to push your interest in that same political party, you continue. If you don't have, you pull out. So what we are, having recently, one aspirant is pulling out, is withdrawing, from a race, is decamping from one party to another party. Probably those are those who don't have the enough, weight, to remain in that political party and push their interest. If you have enough weight, you remain in that party, and you, at least you contend with whoever is, challenging your interest in that party.
So where is this leading the party now?
Definitely it's leading the party to destruction.
Because Kano is a key state for any election in Nigeria.
But it's primary.
So yes, so where does that put the party now at that level in the state?
Of course, it's putting the party at a disadvantaged position.
And a very tight corner.
So, and a very tight corner, because, you have factions now, and possibly after, back and forth in the court, definitely one faction will be recognized by the court, against the other factions. And the faction that will lose out, may either, stay in the party or pull out of the party and support, another, candidate in other political parties. Definitely it will affect, the chances, of that party in the state to win even any elective position, because, your house is not in order. And if your house is not in order, definitely you can't talk to people outside that, okay, please, vote for a candidate, or, support, our candidate in general elections. So it definitely will affect them.
Because PDP cannot afford to make mistake.
Okay.
The Kano politics is centered around individual, and Kwankwaso is a political strongman in that state. And he has formed another political party. But some of his supporters are divided. Some are still with PDP. Some have moved with him. So now there's no figurehead in Kano politics right now. So Kwankwaso has moved to another political party. But moving to another political party is not an issue. It's, do you have the structure? Because you have to have the structure. When I mean structure, you have to have the national spread. And you have to be able to convince the Nigerian people, because most of these political... Yes.
What about the governor of Bauchi State, for example?
Yes.
Who is a presidential candidate and a sitting governor. And we're not sure whether he participated in these primaries for governorships. What happens?
There's always a substitution.
Okay.
Maybe, some people are doing proxy for, there's some presidential aspirants or some, aspirants that are, someone is holding for them.
Okay.
So maybe if he loses from this side of presidential, aspiration, maybe someone will step down for him. Because the INEC, I think, in the electoral law allows for substitution.
I was going to ask, does the electoral law allow for that?
Now, definitely, I am not quite sure whether, but it allows.
The electoral law allows for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Because, for now, you have many of the aspirants, especially, presidential aspirants, trying to at least, get, form, probably maybe give to their loyalists to hold forth for them, pending, the outcome of their presidential elections.
Yes.
For instance, in Sokoto State, where the sitting governor, Tambuwa, is a frontline presidential aspirant of PDP.
Okay.
But, we are having, feelers, that, he also aspiring to move to the Senate, should in case, he lost out, in the presidential, elections. So, definitely, this thing is still there because the electoral law allows for substitution, because after the primaries, political parties will submit their names to INEC. And there is a period, within which
there's a window.
Yeah, there's a window.
So in Bauchi today, we saw that the name of the person there is Kashim Ibrahim. We don't know, the newspapers reported. So whereas the governor is still in the presidential contest, and this is just his first time, unlike Sokoto, who is actually leaving, he would not be governor again, no matter what. So do we see a situation where we're going to have a replacement, and then the governor is going to come back to contest the general election if he doesn't win?
Yeah, what they actually wanted, what did Bello, is that Bello is his name? Yes, is it Bello?
It's
Bala
Bala
former minister of FCT.
Yeah, Bala Mohammed, for little I know about him, just wanted to be governor of Bauchi State, just to add to his CV.
Okay.
He's not interested to go for a second tenure. You know what I'm saying? So what his focus, his target is to be president, or either to be vice president, or whichever. But if it doesn't get any of this,
yes,
he will go to the Senate. He was in the Senate before he became minister. So the point I'm saying is that, like I said, when I started that, political parties are going to feed candidates, candidates that will win election for them. So APC cannot afford to make mistake to feed a candidate that will not win election for the party.
Thank you. But if that is the case,
the same with PDP. So the same with PDP, because like I said, I believe in. I'm a political strategist, because when you say zoning, what it simply means that you agree. You agree on certain terms.
You see,
but that zoning. Yes.
I agree with you about each party trying to fill the candidate that has the highest chance of winning.
Yes.
But what about the accusations by some party members that, particularly, for example, in Rivers State, you know, that the governor has imposed their own choices rather than the choices of the party upon the party membership? Do you see the PDP having problems with that as we go further into the election year?
Of course.
That's our final question.
Yes. Yeah, not only the PDP will have the same issue, even APC will have the same issue. In states where there are other, aspirants, that are not favored, by the incumbent. We've been witnessing, cases of withdrawal from contest, cases of, dumping a party for another party because they believe or feels that their interest is not protected. The incumbent is imposing, preferred aspirants upon others. Others are being, pressured, to step down. To dump their position and support, the incumbent candidate. Definitely, he's talking about, zoning or no zoning or feeding candidates, who can win elections. But I want to tell you that, if you, monitor, observe what is going on across the states, you understand, you realize that it is beyond feeding candidates who can win election. So what the incumbents are doing is just to feed candidates who they believe are absolute, loyal, to them, who can cover whatever, lapses or whatever they have done. Yeah.
What if those ones don't win the election?
Yeah, of course, at least, this is, at the moment now, so they still have the control over who emerges as their party's candidates for them.
Okay, look at example. For example, in Abia State, the incumbent governor has done, by next year, be 8 years. His tenure will be over.
Yes.
It's the turn of another zone. But he didn't obey that policy of zoning. He brought in someone from the same zone. You see what I'm saying?
Himself.
So look, for example, look at what happened in PDP. It's some of like PDP left, Ekweremadu, Engineer Baribe. Why did these people? Why did they leave?
Okay.
They left because they saw that they can't win the required votes. They don't have the really structure. They don't have the strength, the capacity, the strength to actually win. Because when you know that you will lose, it's glaring that you can't win this fight. The best you can do is to back down.
Thank you.
But the greatest mistake for them to have left the party, they should have stayed back in the party and fight it out and see to win. Because leaving now, someone like Peter will be leaving now to another political party, you know, it's going to take a long time for him to build up, because he has spent so much time with PDP.
Dr. Jennings, I will have to find a time to invite you so that we can talk about Peter Obi and his presidential ambition separately. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Malam Abdulatif Saleh, also thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you also for staying with us, our viewers. It's been quite an interesting discussion on the PDP's primaries at all levels, bar the presidential level. As we meet again tomorrow, we'll bring you another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. My name is Suleiman Suleiman. Goodbye.